Welcome back to SSRG and Your View, and you already know me. I am Emmanuel. You must have seen me in the other videos. So today I am recording a solo video. As you can see, my colleagues are not here with me, but I want to talk about something that I've been thinking about for a very long time, and that is cultural discrimination against women in Nigeria. So despite that this video is focused on Nigeria, I want to even pin it down to the Igbo culture, to Igbo people in Nigeria, because this is the context where I am most informed about, so that I don't make the mistake of making an erroneous generalization. So straight to the point, because I do not want to waste your time. That particular thing that has been concerning to me, that prompted me to record this video, is that all the time when you try to challenge certain things, certain cultures in my culture, in Igbo land in Nigeria, that is not so favorable to women, and even sometimes these cultures are not favorable to anyone, but they are much more unfavorable to women. Once you try to confront these cultures, people always push back. People always try to fire back with statements like, this is how it's been from the days of our ancestors, or they try to tell you that there is no people, there is no tribe, there is no community without a culture. And other people try to say things like, if women are given full rights as men in the context of this culture, then that culture is going to be weakened. And it's surprising. I mean, not just surprising, it's disappointing when I try to process it, because how? Now, to begin with, just because this particular thing has been practiced for 100 years doesn't necessarily mean it is right. Now, take for instance, we practiced twin killing for a very long time. But at a point, we realized that, okay, this is not good, and we had to put an end to it, even though with some external intervention. But that is by the way. And also, when we think about the fact that when you give women maximum capacity the same way that men do, it's going to weaken a culture. It sounds barbaric to me, because I do not understand how that works. I had a recent conversation with someone, and he said, if women are allowed to go so close to masquerades, for example, then the masquerade is going to lose its, I don't know, its sacredness or whatever. But it just doesn't make sense to me, because I completely understand, and I know it's a fact that a lot of things that our forefathers did were discriminatory against women. It's just the culture of patriarchy that they cultivated a long time ago that tries to rip women off a lot of rights and privileges. That's just it. Okay, I will use this issue of masquerade outings. This is very popular in Igbo land. I think everywhere in the whole of Igbo culture, there are masquerades. In my community, for instance, we have masquerades. We have the Akatakpa masquerades. And the way it operates is that if you're a woman, you are expected to stay as far away from the masquerade as possible, unlike men. And on special days, during the masquerade outing, women are not supposed to be outside. So at a point on that particular day, all the women at Eke Marketplace must leave, and only the men are left, because at that point they are not qualified to see the masquerade or things like this. And I've been asking myself why. If a woman stayed back when she's not supposed to be there on that particular day, would masquerades die? Definitely not. I know no one is going to die, or something very terrible is never going to happen. It's just that this is the way it's been institutionalized by our ancestors. And I know that one of the reasons why they did that was because they wanted to show authority. They wanted to suppress their wives, to show that men should always be in charge. And that is why you hear a lot of people, even in the 21st century, a lot of men still say things like when I am talking or when we are talking, who is a woman to interfere in what we are talking about? I know you must have heard something like that too. Or people still say things like, how can a woman I married with my money tell me what to do or decide what happens in the midst of men? You know, this is it. And this is the same way I feel when I think about the fact that in Igbo land, women are also not allowed to break kola nut in many occasions, especially when a man is there. It doesn't necessarily mean that if a woman broke kola nut, the whole community would experience an earthquake or the traditional ruler would die. No, it's just that right from the beginning, our fathers, my ancestors, have made it that women should stay away from this. Women should not be involved in this because they believed in the superiority of men. Now, a different line of argument, for example, I want to go back to the masquerade that I use, for instance. I know that in the beginning, right from the origin of the masquerade, our ancestors used them as traditional means of crime control. You know, they used it to control people who were proving beyond every other person, or people who were maltreating others, or like criminals or thieves. They used it to reduce crime to a significant extent until when the state took over. You know, the state went into a social contract with the entire nation, and the police and other armed forces took over some responsibilities. But even at that, it does not necessarily mean that a woman cannot contribute, in the use of that masquerade to control crime. That's just an aspect of it, right? And someone would argue that the reason why women were excluded was because, they did not have the physical strength to participate in the operations of the masquerade. For example, if the masquerades were going to attack someone who was proven beyond the entire community, a woman would not be strong enough to, participate in that. That is understandable to a significant extent, even though there are a lot of women who are stronger than men, but that is a different line of argument I don't want to go into. But yes, we accept that biologically, women tend to be less stronger than men, but that does not in any way mean that women cannot do a lot of things that men do. Women fight wars, women are police officers, women are in the army everywhere in the world. So the point I am trying to make is that this is the point where we need to stop rethinking. We need to start rethinking all these things. We need to start unlearning the things we have learned, because I was in a conference a time ago, and a professor once said something like, the illiterates of the 21st century are not those who cannot read or write, but those who cannot unlearn things they've learned. And it's very striking when you think about it, because it's true. If you live your life based on things you've known, you do not change them, you do not try to question your own knowledge, you do not think critically, you are constantly being outdated. And I do not believe that is the best for anyone. So when we think about culture in the Igbo land, when we think about a lot of things that are discriminatory against women, let's deviate from that line of argument that this is how it's been from the days of our fathers. That it doesn't make sense. It's so dumb to say something like that. So, for example, if I start abusing children, for example, I'm just giving an instance. If I start abusing children and start making people around me feel that it is normal, over a year, 2 years, over a decade, it's going to become a norm. It becomes a culture. And the next generation will continue to abuse children. And we are simply going to give the excuse that, yeah, this is the way our ancestors have been doing it, and that is why. it should not be like that. So it is something that everybody needs to think about. Now, the question I'm going to ask myself and also ask you, which you could of course drop in the comment section, is, in the midst of this, what can we do? What can we do to save this situation? Now, I'm going to give my response as to what I think, but I want you to seriously tell us what you think. I want you to engage with this video, because this is a very critical conversation that all of us should be thinking about, because it does more harm than good. And every day it's growing, it continues to grow, because we continue to pass it on to the next generation. So what I feel like we should do is somehow what I'm already doing right now. First of all, you need to question yourself. In your solitude, when you're just alone, ask yourself certain questions. This particular thing that has been done this way in my community, why? When you ask yourself that question and you are able to provide yourself with valid answers, then fine. But if you are not, which in most cases is obtainable, that you are not able to provide yourself with valid answers, try to ask questions. Ask your dad, your grandpa, your grandma. Ask the elderly ones, and you understand what I'm saying. They usually tell you, this is the way it has been. In my case, for example, my father has told me a lot of times that, yeah, this is the way it's been done from the days of my own fathers. And that's the much you could get from them. So when you get responses like that, now you start trying to challenge it. Try to make these people, your dad, your mom, your elderly siblings, your church members, your community leaders, when you have one-on-one conversation with them, try to raise this kind of thing. Because the truth is, they are going to push back, of course, when you raise that conversation. They are not going to agree with you. But somehow, when people retire to their beds in the night, they begin to think about things. Yeah, this is how it happens. They try to reflect on it. Because sometimes they are not proud enough to admit certain flaws in these cultures, but alone they can think about it. And once they begin to think about it, it means that if such arguments continue, they might have a change, a value reorientation concerning that culture. So in the whole of Igbo land, all these cultures that treat women as if they are valueless, all these cultures that when a masquerade sees a woman, the masquerade flogs her as if she were not a human being, all this culture that tries to rip women off certain property when the husband dies, the kind of culture that, denies a woman the opportunity, to get part of the late father's property. That's discriminatory, because in some part of Igbo land, a woman does not have a right to any will. Nothing is willed to her, especially when it comes to landed property. A woman is not qualified to inherit any of those things when the father dies. Why? Simply because she is a woman. There is no other thing. By the virtue of being a man, the only thing that qualifies me to inherit my late father's property is I don't use my genitals, for example, to inherit them. It is just that I have that Y chromosome, that's all. And the only reason why a woman is not entitled to those things is because he has the XY. This is the height of discrimination. These are even the things we should be talking about in the 21st century. Unlike always trying to pretend that the government is our problem all the time. I don't want to make this video very lengthy, but I'm going to summarize right now. We should start condemning all the practices that discriminate against women. All the masquerade activities that try to suppress women must be scrapped or readjusted, or I don't know, changed in a way that it becomes very fair and peaceful to everyone. All the practices that try to reflect that women are more vulnerable than they have agency must be condemned. Because this is the 21st century we are talking about, for God's sake. It's 2026. So in your communities, in your churches, in that primary school you teach, in that secondary school you teach, in that university where you lecture, in that marketplace where you sell, where you do your business, you have the opportunity to always say this kind of thing to people. Because someone started the idea and now it has become a culture. You could start the idea of changing it today, and in 10 years, it can become a culture. Thank you so much. Keep watching our videos. Like, share, and subscribe. We'll see you next time with my colleagues.